You hear this a lot among people who experience childhood trauma. We have trouble shaking off the feeling that we're somehow different, as if everyone else seems to know something, like how to act, what to say, how to be connected, and that somehow we never got the memo. Do you ever feel like that? And I know it's not just people with childhood PTSD, but it seems to be a big feature of what it's like to go through life with invisible wounds inside that formed there when you were abused or neglected or just chronically traumatized in childhood. So let's look at this. Is this feeling of being different just in our minds? Well, the answer is somewhat. Now, to think this through, let's break it down. Part of feeling apart from other people is human nature. From time to time, everyone feels like they're somehow different from most people. But some people also grew up in a way that was in fact different from the majority of other kids. And maybe that's you too. Maybe your family came from another country, or you knew you were gay, or your family was poor compared to most other families you knew, or your parents were unusually strict. And these are real differences. And then if there was trauma happening at home, that's a difference. Like maybe you didn't feel like you could bring other kids to your home, right? Maybe it was really dirty or run down, or you never knew what kind of drama might be going on when you walked in the door. That'll make you feel different. And that's definitely how I grew up. And you know, people with childhood PTSD are just people, and we have more or less the same needs and feelings and dreams as anyone. But what we went through as kids maybe did change us. Maybe it did make us a little bit different. And that feeling that we're so prone to, that other people seem to be on the same wavelength, where they understand each other and how to act and what to say and how to connect, and that we can't seem to find the wavelength, well, I think that might be to some degree somewhat real. What's made me think about this is a book I read a few years ago called The Interbrain by Digby Tantum. And he's a professor of psychotherapy at the University of Sheffield in the UK. And he's one of the world's leading experts on autism. And CPTSD is not the same as autism, but some of that feeling of disconnection we have in common with autistic people. And Dr. Tantum suggests that there's a kind of nonverbal communication between people, among people, that functions something like Wi-Fi, something we tap into when we're with other people or when we're in a group that lets us connect with them in a natural way. And this is what he calls the interbrain. And it's the thing that people on the autistic spectrum may not have total access to. They tend to have a hard time reading other people or perceiving nonverbal signals about when it's okay to talk or how close to stand or what facial expressions mean. And I'm just speculating here, but it seems like a little bit, at least, trauma might disrupt our access to the interbrain too. It definitely feels that way for a lot of us. Like other people got the instructions for how to hang out together. And those of us with childhood PTSD have to just figure it out by ourselves, by trial and error, including a lot of error. And I mean, a lot of what I learned from watching TV. So the ability to be connected with people seems to be part nurture, part nature, and like everything else, we may never know the exact mix of genetic factors and environmental factors, and that might have made connecting with people challenging. But we do know that neglect and abuse in early childhood can cause brain changes. A lot of us didn't get the same one-on-one closeness and interaction that's so important for kids, not just for emotional development, but for neurological development, for the nervous system. And this is a real disadvantage. Maybe you felt different for as long as you can remember, or maybe it was an awareness that just developed in your teens. A lot of us really only started noticing that we were different after we'd used up a lot of other theories about why we feel different. Like we thought it was all about a particular school or a particularly mean kid, or maybe if you had social differences from other kids, like strict parents or being from another country, you maybe thought that for a really long time, that must be why, that's why I feel different. But after enough time, you notice that it couldn't be just that, because there's a pattern there. And no matter how nice you are or how hard you try or how eagerly you want to fit in and make friends, you're just not connecting. It wasn't just in your mind. Or you notice that other people were connecting, they just weren't connecting with you. or not for long anyway, or not like, you would like to be connected with people. It still hurts me to think about it. It's been a long process. It's gotten better. And it's kind of like other things with childhood PTSD, where even professionals misunderstand why we act the way we do, and they think we're avoiding connection on purpose. And eventually we might do it on purpose, but initially we're just innocent kids who want to hang out with other kids like anybody else. And somehow we thought we were just screwing it up. And it must have looked intentional to people who don't have what we have. And it reminds me of having bad relationships and being told by therapists who had tremendous confidence in their theory that you're just trying to recreate your childhood because it's familiar to you, or you're just trying to recreate your childhood because this time you can resolve it, or some theory or other. But you know what? It was all BS when it came to me anyway. All I ever wanted was a good relationship. My parents' relationship when I was small was horrible, and there's not a cell in my body that actually wants that, not consciously, not unconsciously. So what if the problem is just brain changes from neglect? Wouldn't that be enough to make it hard to read other people's intentions or whether they're suitable as partners or not? Wouldn't that all by itself be enough to make attachment happen in a kind of jerky fashion, rushing in, running away, then rushing in again? It's a brain thing, okay? It's a brain thing. So when you're feeling left out and other people are telling you it's all in your mind, maybe that's not entirely it. Maybe it's all in your brain and the connection is actually a bit compromised, for now anyway. In my own experience and learning from other people with childhood PTSD, I've observed that it can be hard sometimes to connect with us. And without disliking us or anything like that, people might just naturally drift toward friends where the connection happens more easily. And that part of it is real too. So the question is, can we get better at connecting? And the answer is definitely yes. We can work on healing our brains as much as possible and at the same time working on social skills that we maybe didn't learn at home. And if we can get to a level of connection that makes us happy and allows us to care for people who depend on us, and after that we get to work on accepting our own nature as, custom made of being, it's just we're ourselves. We don't actually have to fit in with everybody, and we don't have to be connected just because that's what you're supposed to do. And while some people are actually called to solitude and they're happiest just being by themselves, most of us deep down crave closeness and connection with friends and maybe a partner. And it may not be something that you want right now in your life, but even so, it's good to be developing the capacity for it, right? So when I work with people and in all my courses, I invite them to start by writing down and naming what it is they really want, their real heart's desire. And too many of us have shrunk that down to some small version of life where we think the things that we really want are just too much to ask. But with healing, the normal things of love and connection and stability, they come into reach. It's a matter of learning and healing, and if you want to find out how to do it, you can click the link to my courses in the description section below. Because the good news is healing really is possible. I don't expect that any of us will ever be restored to perfect mint condition in terms of connection and attachment. We might always be a little sensitive, a little quick to withdraw, a little overreactive, and that is okay. If this is the ideal, and this is how far away from connecting you are right now, you can maybe come here with a little effort. And then somewhere in here would be a good stretch goal, like right up there, somewhere in the range that allows you to have good friends, maybe a loving spouse, and enough connection to be a good parent and a good friend. So if you're here, do you feel like you could move closer toward connection? Even if it's just some small steps today, and you need to spend tomorrow recovering from that intense feeling. You know what I'm talking about? This is really the only way that change ever happens, one small step at a time, in a consistent and positive direction. And I know so well that consistency is not something that comes easily to people with childhood PTSD. Our progress just as often comes in fits and starts. There's a period of accomplishment followed by a period of giving up. So smaller steps, good routines, they help us keep moving forward more of the time. And when we fall, we don't fall so low, or we don't stay down for long. We're moving forward all the time toward healing. When it comes to connection with others, this works in small steps too. If you've been isolating and it's time to step out of that cocoon a little bit, maybe try twice a day. Start small. If you're hanging out with people but it feels superficial, like it never goes anywhere, try 2 things: listening more and opening up more. Just a little. There's no need to share all your trauma stories with people you just met, but just a little. You'll find that having boundaries takes practice, and it sets you free to connect more. You won't have to fear overcommitting yourself or getting stuck in the company of someone you don't like. With boundaries, you can say no and leave those situations. So in terms of, are we different than other people? I think our heart's desire is the same as everyone's. But yes, I think we're a little different than most people. And you know what? The best thing we can be is our real selves. And whatever we've experienced, good and bad, it's part of that. And as we heal from childhood PTSD, all of our experience becomes wisdom. And the hard experiences in particular become what's deep about us, what's compassionate about us. And from time to time, you're going to meet someone who's in the middle of suffering, and they are going to find hope. Because why? Because you understand them, because you went through it too. So embrace who you are and how you are. We get to keep working on ourselves, and we get to enjoy where we are right now, which is like messed up angels. And you know what? We're always going to be like that. So if you think that maybe trauma in your past has affected your ability to connect with people, and that it's hard for you to connect with the Wi-Fi, so to speak, here's a quiz you can take. You can download it for free by clicking right here, and I will see you very soon.